Good evening, Olive.
Good evening, Ruchi. Happy to see you. Happy to catch up again, once again, with you.
Happy to catch up with you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And I know you're in Madrid right now. So it's night, but it is still light.
Yes, it's actually, we fail to sleep because, I mean, it stays light till midnight.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting game, and we are used to sleeping as soon as it's dark. So until it's dark, we are up and about running around. Yeah, but it's an interesting experience in Madrid. I must say, it's a beautiful country.
It's a beautiful place. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I welcome all the lovely ladies and gents here. Thank you so much for joining us again in our third episode of Mentoring Session with Olive. And this time we are talking about a fairly spoken about, but also a serious topic, a serious consideration for board members now, and which is bringing women on board. We're going to talk today not from a perspective of an applicant, but from a perspective of the other side of the table, which means on the side of board members, on the side of people who have experience, right? What is changing and what is the focus about bringing women on boards? And is this here to stay? Is it only a movement towards gender equality and gender parity? Or is there a real benefit, right? So today's conversation, you should be able to pick up where the reality for board members lie. Today's conversation, you should be able to pick up what are the practical problems of why boards have not seen women so far, and what's changing on the ground now. It hopefully will allow you to build perspective. It will hopefully allow you to prepare, because we are together in these changing times.
Yeah.
Right. And it should allow you to take away some practical point of views, which when you apply it to yourself, you will be able to find different ways of overcoming those hurdles or bottlenecks. So hopefully at the end of the conversation today, your perspective would have been slightly alleviated from, the worldview that is. So we'll direct and channel our conversation back to the expert in the room here, Olive Lemonia, and she is a board member at various institutions, ranging from public sector, private sector, to not-for-profit organizations. She works with government. She works with the president and his wife closely. She has international connections and ties. You can hardly find her in Uganda. So someone who's
always in Uganda. Okay, thank you, Ruchi.
Yeah. So Olive, in the same vein as my, the topic is, right, bringing women on boards. Why the need to bring women on boards beyond gender parity? I know we have to, we should, it's the right thing to do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But beyond the right thing to do, beyond gender parity, what are the felt benefits you have experienced as a board member, not so much as a woman, but as a board member yourself, of having seen women come on board?
Wow, that's a nice one, because actually it has been a debate. One of the things I must say is it's taken us too long. And I think it has taken the world too long to realize the impact of women in the boardroom. But everything has its beginning. And I think for me, I think we are on the right track. But move away from the gender parity, like you said, the truth and facts that happen in the boardroom when we have women in those boardrooms. I think you have seen certain new leadership styles, and it has come out clear that at one time, the leadership style we looked at was the hardcore leadership. And we felt, and I think the belief was that when you use the hardcore leadership, you have results. As we go on with the changing environment, changing technology, changing style and behavior of staff, it is very clear that the soft style of leadership is becoming more critical. And in these boardrooms, it's the women that actually bring on board the soft skill leadership style. I'll also share with you some of the things that we've been talking about, saying, okay, who are the best leaders? If you go to matters like humility, knowing that your strong sense of identity defines but doesn't inflate your relevancy, that is women. Many women have been able to bring on board that humility. And where there's humility, you're actually able to connect with the boardroom, to connect with management, and to connect with the stakeholders. I think I've seen that very clearly in most of the boards that I've sat on. And these are traits that are actually being brought in by women. The other soft skills which I can refer to, which we know as women, there is a character that we are born as women, but we have the empathy in us. Now, today's leadership requires you to connect. For you to be able to connect with the people, for you to be able to understand what they need and where the issues are, that empathy becomes very critical. That I've also seen it as a trait that has been brought on board by many women when they come into boardrooms, because not many men, I know there are some, yes, I don't want to say men don't have empathy, but there are many women that are actually strong on that. There is vulnerability, many times we don't want the willingness to be seen as exposed to your staff, but women in the boardroom or women in other positions are able to touch and show that vulnerability, that empathy, that compassion, virtues that actually yield results. So for me, I think there's no other reason, but when you have this mix of women, you're actually able to make better decisions, more well-thought decisions that can actually impact on the organizations. The other one, which I have practically seen, is discernment. You see, as women, we take time to understand things. We take time, we read. Sometimes we are considered to be a bit slow, but we are managing risks. Sometimes we delay the decision to the next day. But that discernment, ability to know what is good and bad, or what is good and better, comes out very clear when you take that time to be able to understand and to be able to be focused on knowing what is good and what's bad and what will be better for you. The women, we have that. Sometimes we rather take a step down, slow down a bit, think through it, read, because we have attention to detail. That I've seen it in boardrooms. Sometimes we open this board pack and we are reading the board papers. And I'll give you a good example in one of the boards that I sat in. I was a member of that board, and when the term ended, I came back on the second board. But I think somehow management didn't expect some board members to be back for the second term. And in the minutes, there was a statement of somebody being recommended for appointment in a certain position. But because I had taken time to read my minutes, I had read them during that time, and this boardroom, I raised my hand and said, I don't remember us having made this decision. That's just before the minutes were going to be signed. So attention to detail. Some of these virtues have actually saved institutions from making wrong decisions. Sometimes men want to make very fast decisions at the expense of the organization, but women bring on that soft part to tone down, to say, wait a minute, because sometimes in these boards, even if you're only 3 women, your voice will be seen, because you cannot have a board where you always go with the different voices. The board chair tries as much as possible to have a consensus with all of you. So in that matter of consensusness, you're actually able to put forward what you think should be the right thing that should be done. So for me, I think some of those are critical virtues. The other one, why we need women, which I can tell you very clearly, conflict resolution. I have sat in boards and I have been able to see even before the conflict arises, or disharmony. You'll just see through body language, you'll just see somebody puts up a presentation and somebody's pulling down the presentation and somebody's starting off, and you'll see that in the first board meeting. You will see friction from the managing director and some of the board members. You will see it in the second meeting. So I think it's an ability which I've seen in women that we foresee conflict. We see even before it arises, and then we have that ability, God-given, I must say, to somehow resolve conflict, to get two people into a room and able to talk to them. I have been in situations where I have actually talked to men and I've said, why are you disagreeing? I think this is not going to help you. This is management, this is board, this is what we need to do. So I think the advantages, I must say, are enormous. Some of them come to us by our virtue of being mothers or women, because they are those characteristics that we portray at home, and they have managed to keep homes together. They've managed to allow homes to grow, yet at one time they were undermined. But when you put them into the boardroom, you actually see the difference, bringing light, hope, and happiness. Because women, we love happiness, you know? So sometimes a boardroom needs to be a bit happy, a bit light, a bit fresh, you know? So you come in with a style, and that gives the momentum of where the board should be. So I'm a big proponent, I've seen it. We need more women in the boardroom. Right now we have few, there are still few, because certain decisions we can actually fail to put our voices heard, but we need more women in the boardroom. The advantages to organizations are enormous.
I think what you're highlighting so many critical pieces here, Olive, and I think it's very interesting that you didn't use the word value, you used the word virtues, and humility, being vulnerable, empathy are virtues. They are beyond values. They are something that we carry from deep within us. It's a stream of life that runs through us, right?
Yes.
And the part of what the other part, that the flavor that you're bringing in, it's not necessarily a virtue, but it's an evolutionary piece, which is that about millions of years ago, when the spinal cord of man started to straighten up because he began climbing up and climbing down trees, right? So the spine started straightening up. And then man came into the open, right? No more shrubs and bushes. And he came into open lands and he was able to hunt that way. And men went to hunt and women stayed back to rear and nurture.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that hasn't really gone away. You know, we carry part of it and it manifests itself in different ways in the reality that we have today.
Yeah.
It's not that men cannot nurture. It's not that men don't have these values or virtues that we are talking about. It's not that they cannot be humble, that they cannot be vulnerable. It is just that evolutionary, there is a guard that comes in, and those guards are very strong. And for women, they have always been behind, to stay back. When I say behind, it's to stay back. I don't mean to say in technology, education. No, let's leave that. It's not that conversation. We've stayed back. We stayed back for homemaking. We have stayed back for nurturing, rearing the young ones, teaching them, right? And that's where the softness comes from.
Yes.
That's where the softness comes from. That's where the, okay, hold and pause, there is need, you know, and is it enough for everybody? How do you apportion it? So the discernment piece, even the judgment and decision
making. That ability, yes. You
know, it's not necessarily coming from a place of aggression and hunting.
No,
it's
and actually, just
to add, space for everybody.
Yes, and actually, if you have a boardroom that has, as you rightly said, we are not saying men don't have it; they have it, but there's a gift that women have that is not understandable on how it comes. I think it's inbuilt in us. So if you find a boardroom that is actually only men, the chances of conflict are also high, because we can't continue managing organizations from the hardcore only. I think COVID-19 showed us, if you look at the rating of the best organizations that were run, and the role that women played was critical. So very soon we are starting to see how boardrooms have been running, because an organization will succeed because of how the board is running. And these were women-led organizations, managing COVID, making a bit of profits in COVID, and staying the organization afloat. If you go to read behind their cycle, because there are books that have been published, what did they do differently? You'll see that actually it's the virtues that I'm talking about, the values together that I'm talking about, that enabled them for those 2 years to sail through. So it tells you that the reality in this world, we need them. We need those virtues to be able to sail through.
Fantastic, Olive.
Yes, yes, yes.
So while this is really the truth of what the board needs, whether a man brings it to the table or a woman brings it to the table, irrespective of that, this is what board needs for harmonious operation, to work together and not to split, converge, to integrate.
Exactly.
But in the real life, Olive, what does happen is that biases and prejudice come in. And I'd like for us to take some time to talk about what are the typical prejudice board has, right? Board members have, and when I say board members, I mean that men could have these biases and so could women. So there could be women who are having biases towards other women. So what are the biases that come in, that you can talk to?
The biases have been many, but I must say that trend is beginning to change. Because I think my first time, I think some of the first boards that I got on, there are certain biases that have been historical, and not only in boards, but you see them cutting across from organizations, and even how decisions are made in appointing an MD or chief finance officer, or who acts in a position when the MD is not there. Now, one of the biases that I experienced, which I know has been there, is the belief that women cannot make hard decisions.
Because they're soft.
Yes. So there is a confusion between the hard decisions and the soft, or the soft spoken and the soft in decision making. So that bias, I saw it, I witnessed it. And for you to overcome that weakness, you have to work very hard. You have to showcase all the time. You have to be very organized, well knowledgeable, well read, understand finance, understand technical, understand engineering, so that when you stand up to speak, they are actually confused on how good you are. It takes a lot of effort. So one of the biases is that, and has been big. So if you look at finance as one of the areas, I think there was a bias, and when committees were being formed, board committees, because I mean a board has committees, you'll find that in a subtle manner, some of these don't come out very clearly, openly, but in the subtle manner, when somebody is asking who will chair the board of the finance committee of the board, or who will chair this particular board committee, you'll notice that they are skewed in having the men to chair those committees for those particular areas where they think they are the top technical courses or areas that are more critical to a running of an organization. I recall that sometime back, if you notice, most of the positions that were more considered important was chief finance officer. Certain positions were not really, HR was not at that level. So it was also impossible that an MD went on leave and the head of HR acted. So you find that there's that bias on courses that has been there and affects the board. Sometimes also there have been biases of which fortunately are coming out very, very clearly. You get into a board, and I think the feelings that women will always go on maternity, or women will not be available, or women will be busy with children, and they will give the organization less time, especially if you get onto the board when you're still in the childbirth age. So because you have children, you have responsibility in the family, you have other family issues, of course, the issue of balancing work, family, home, and all this, and boardroom, plus your own job. So that bias is one of those that has been there. But I must say, from my areas where I have participated, it is coming out very clear that that is not true. That actually you're having women coming out strong and actually closing that bias. But we need to work extra hard because we still have boardrooms where that bias, you see, biasness can be, or what people think about you can be re-emphasized depending on the actions you take. So if you're a woman in this boardroom, you can actually make them believe, you can actually do things that will make them believe that their biases are correct. So that is something that we need to continue to move on. I think the other one that I can speak on, which I've seen, I think what I know, it takes more time to vet women onto the boardrooms. Because the question is, do they have all the qualifications? Do they have the experience? Which boards were they on before? And it's a disadvantage because women have not been in the boardroom. It's just the last 10 years or 15 years or so.
It's not
So
just the
boardroom,
the entire pipeline of women leadership is so weak. Where will you get women on boardroom if you don't have them as CEOs, if you don't have them as CTOs, CFOs, if you do not have them as vice presidents and directors and senior directors? The entire pipeline is dry.
Exactly. So you are looking and you're saying, we need somebody with experience. We need somebody who has worked, who has been on the board for 10 years. Where are you going to get them from for 10 years in the boardroom? So this kind of biasness, I think, are some of the detractors, I can't say detractors, that affects how many women are appointed on the board. And actually, if you go in some of these boards, it's 2 against 8 or 2 against 7. But I hope that in the next few years, we should be able to see a parity of at least 3 women, maybe against 5. So I know step by step, we should be able to get there. But as ladies, what I know is that you have to work extra hard because getting biasness is like perception. 50 years of perception is very hard to break down.
There is a bit of a truth in that, though, all is right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll speak to this piece on being organized and presenting and being knowledgeable, right? You mentioned that just a while ago. The truth of the matter is, as a senior leader, it's, you don't pop your head up and say, hey, I'm available for a board position. It's that you should have been visible. You might have been visible. You might have been holding a senior position somewhere. How have you operated in those positions? Are you on time for meetings? Do you keep your meetings or do you land up canceling them? What is the frequency with which you cancel meetings? What is the percentage that you overrun in meetings, right? What do your follow-ups look like? How strong is your project execution? All of these things leave a trail behind. There's, you make your name or you break your name depending on what has happened in your past, where you're coming from.
Exactly.
So being organized, time management is very critical, and it's okay to drop the ball. I don't think we are asking for anyone to be perfect, for men to be perfect or for women to be perfect. It's possible to drop the ball, but I think it's about the frequency with which someone drops the ball.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
If you're dropping the ball with a lot of frequency, it talks about that you're still trying to do too many things.
Yes.
Someone is still trying to do everything, and then that everything looks like being all over the place. So those are the recalibration that women need to do on their side to be able to say on a single day what's important and what's not and what can be deferred. And you spoke about women having the ability to discern and push out something for a later date.
Exactly, and prioritizing. Yeah. You see, you can have 1,000 things, but what is the priority? Yeah. The day you make a decision to get onto this board, what does that mean for you? As you've said, time, because we have, I say we have to work harder to stand out, position our brands as strong by doing some of those, the consistency in which we make decisions, the time management that you've said, the ability to read beyond just the board pack and read beyond that, to read the industry. So I think there are those that we need to do if we are going to break those biases. And it's what each of us does in the boardrooms where we are appointed that will, in the long run, break the biases. Otherwise, if we don't, those biases are strong. It's perception, and perception can take you 20, 50 years to break it down. And we may take more years before we even get the women in boardrooms.
You know, it's important that I think we also call out how hard women are on themselves, you know, in terms of wanting to do everything, wanting to also know everything. You know, we are talking about being knowledgeable, yes, but there's a difference between being knowledgeable and knowing everything.
Yeah.
Right. So can you speak a little more about that piece, Olive? Because I think women need a little bit more perspective to be kind and compassionate to themselves before they, you know, give it to others. Bring it to the board.
You have to, because you see, there is knowledge. The question is, how do you amass your knowledge? And what kind of knowledge are you looking for? You don't have to know it all, because I'll tell you, when you go into this boardroom, if you go, we've done governance, the direction is very clear. What are the areas of focus that you must be able to know, understand, in order to make the right decisions on the boardroom? And those areas are very clear. I think we've had guidelines from several professionals, experts, King's report. They will give you those specific, either it's finance, accountability, and so forth, that you need to do. So because you have guidelines on certain things that you must look out into in the boardroom, you don't actually have to read everything to become the operational officer.
Yeah.
You've seen boardrooms where actually we've had boards crossing the line from their strategic responsibility and attempting to become operational. Mm. That is when you actually want to say, I know it all. Knowledge and knowing it all are two different things. Knowledge, up to what level do you want to be knowledgeable? And what will that knowledge that you're trying to get, what added value will it be to your decision-making and understanding of the business? So if you're in the board, you're looking at policy, you're looking at strategy, you're looking at finance, you're looking at those broad areas that actually give the overall direction of how an organization should run. So we need, as women, that being had on yourselves, on ourselves, is something that can only be done if we understand the structure. These structures, how do they run? Because sometimes you may know everything and deliver nothing. That is possible. So you must be able to know, if I want to know, to have knowledge about something, up to what level? Because you can't be an expert in everything.
Yes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's very well said. All of you can know everything and then deliver nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, brings a lot of stories to mind for me as well. So Olive, we are talking about breaking biases, right? But making sure we don't fall in the trap of biases that might have some degree of truth in them, right? So not falling prey to it, right? I think one of the other things that will be greatly helpful is to talk about self-presentation as a senior woman leader. So not necessarily board, it will lead there, but how do you, without getting into a whole lot of brand marketing and stuff like that, what are the practical do's and don'ts for senior women that you would share?
Wow, yeah, that's a big topic. I must say it's a big topic, but they are very clear directions. One, depending on what level you are at, when you take the responsibility of either being a CEO, of either being a head of department, or joining a boardroom, that position you take on comes with a structured level of what is expected of you. Expected of you responsibly, your responsibilities that you need to do, but also expected of you as an individual. And for me, from my experience, there are certain things that you need to be able to do. And those things that you need able to be able, you must be able to define yourself and say, who do you want to be like in this boardroom? What do you want people to perceive you as in your next 5 years? Once you've agreed on a direction that is very clear, that yes, I've been appointed on this board, I've been appointed the CEO, I've been appointed this is what I need to be perceived as. And some of those are very straightforward bits that sometimes we ignore. The first one is your presentability. Yeah. There's no other way. People will look at you, even if you enter the boardroom and you were presentable. Sometimes those who are looking at you imagine that you're so knowledgeable even before you say a single word, because you are presentable and you look knowledgeable, those two. So presentability, how do you present yourself? Different scenarios require different levels of presentability, but you must be able to be prepared, well-planned, and organized. The look, even when I say presentability, do you come with your files? One is falling off from the other side. A pen is falling off. One bag is on the other side. How do you arrange your documents in these? Those are small matters, but those are the matters that define you in your first meetings or in the several meetings you go to. How organized are you when you come to your documentation? Are you somebody who, after this first board meeting, when you come for the second board, you can't remember where your board pack was? You can't remember where the minutes are, you're asking the corporation secretary for another copy? Are you the one, when they send you minutes and documents at home or office, you end up coming to the meeting without them? I'm giving you from experience because I've seen this happening, you know? So there are those do's and don'ts that when you
collected.
Yes, when you
in your bearing.
Exactly. When you define yourself and you say, for me, I think this is me, organized, knowledgeable, consistent. One of the things that you must do, you must be consistent as long as you take on a senior position. When I give consistency, I've been in boards where, management will come in and say, make a presentation, and we say, yes, I think we need to restructure. And they'll present and show us and say, yes, I think 8 people need to be restructured. When we come in and sit for another meeting, we've all agreed, you'll come in and say, no, but again, on a second thought, I think that decision was wrong. We make another decision in another meeting. So when you're not consistent, everybody will know you for that. And when you keep changing your decisions, it means when you made the first decision, you did not make it from an informed point of view, or you have been infiltrated by external factors. I'll give you this because government boards, you can be infiltrated. You'll receive a call and say, why are you people doing ABCD? So you'll come tomorrow and try to change the decision. That consistency is something that we should ensure that we run with as part and parcel of our jacket. So there are those do's that you must be able to do. The other, I must say that being consistent is one of those strong virtues that you need in whatever decision making. People should be able to know you in a certain manner. And if you want to change that decision, there must also be evidence. It must be evidence-based that perhaps this decision, we have to change it because of ABCD. But many times we have people, you come in and say, no, I've changed my mind. So how did you change your mind to this decision? And normally these are the hard decisions: restructuring, salary, maybe changing CEO, those critical decisions, investments. That's when actually you'll see the levels of inconsistency and so forth coming on. So I think the do's and don'ts are many, but it's how you must read and be prepared. Getting into a boardroom and you're not read and you've not read the papers, you've not been able to understand the topics, the chances of you standing out and positioning yourself as a brand will be very weak. And as I've already said, if you're not defined in that level, it will be very hard for you to get onto another board. That's why you see many people have gone into one board, you've never had them into another board, because boards are by referral. So how organized are you? How knowledgeable are you? The consistency, the presentability. You must also be dependable. And you must also be able to create harmony in the boardroom. You must be somebody who adds value and come in with areas that nobody seems to have had, you know? So I think for me, those are experiences that I've had. I've been in boardrooms, and one of the things I've done is creating harmony. I'll see it right from the top, whether it's the board chairman, whether it's board members, and try to bring them together. So some of those I think we need to do.
I think it's very vital to point out that you are not saying that that once a decision is made, never go back and change your mind. That's not what you're alluding to. You're talking about somebody who's habitually in the habit of saying yes and then no, or no and then yes, or
normal on hard decisions.
Yes,
the most sensitive decisions.
Yes. So
and
it's
not
okay
having
to change
evidence.
mind, but then you're saying that don't make it your pattern. Don't begin to lead from a place of
Yes.
constantly, shifting
Doing
between
that. Exactly. And when you do it, have a very well structured reason as to why you want to do it.
Yeah.
Because in future, that's how you will exonerate yourself. If somebody came in and said you may change the decision, you should be able to have the evidence of why you needed to change that decision. So structured thinking, understanding, and knowledge before you make that change, or before you make even the first decision.
So that's terrific, Olive. We are almost at the end of our time together, Olive. But before that, I think what's important in this and to bring women on board, and now I'm going to the other side to talk from a point of view of who aspire to senior leadership positions, to serve in more critical positions, more strategic positions, and positions that demand a lot of decision making. Let me put it that way, so that it's not defined by titles, but the effort that goes in, right? And kind of, it's hard for women out there. They are juggling multiple responsibilities. We are also, what I'm trying to ask you, Olive, is that what is the kind of support, practical support, women should ask of their families and of their employers when they begin to operate in senior positions?
Wow, there's a lot that they can ask. Maybe one that I can say is that the hardest part of the game is the ability to be able to balance the family, to balance your work, because you've taken on a new role, maybe in leadership. If you've joined the board, then that's an added job. You have responsibilities in the family, extended family. So being able to balance that becomes very, 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 very critical. And sometimes if it's not well managed, it will break the work. You may get into a position and you fail to deliver, or your family will suffer, or your children will have challenges, or you'll have marriages breaking down because maybe the husband is saying she's very busy, she doesn't have time for me, or the family will break down. So the risks are many for women because, as we said from the beginning, one of the parts is that we bring together that balance. So for me, I think one of the things that we need also to do some kind of advocacy. Advocacy needs to come in, and certain policies, structures need to come in a favorable manner. I'll give you an example. You'll appoint a lady into a top position today, and she'll have a baby, okay? It doesn't mean that she's not good enough. She's actually an expert. She's experienced, but she needs to also support her own family. So what kind of policies do we have in these organizations that will enable her to continue excelling on her job and at the same time take care of the family? Because we are lacking some of those in our organizations, once that happens, somebody else takes on the acting position. By the time the lady comes back, the feelings that this person who has taken on the position is better than her. but that's not true. So I think the asking we are having is that what should organizations do to take into consideration some of the human nature or responsibilities that have been given by God to women, and actually responsibilities that have brought forth men into this world, you know? So there must be that balance. The other one, which I know, it's your responsibility as a lady when you're appointed in some of these positions to sit with your family and let them understand you. I think some of the jobs I joined one time when I was leaving NSF to join SOS, I sat with my children. Sometimes we think children are young, but they're actually not young. And I told them, I said, you see, I'm changing jobs. I'm moving to this job, and this is what the job will mean. My husband was part of it. I said, so guys, what do you think? They said, Mommy, take the job because you have a passion for it. I said, but these are the challenges, you know, because they are children. I'll be looking after about 10,000 children. I'll not have no time. Some of them said, we shall be going with you on those programs. So some of the things I've done, my kids are known in some of the organizations because sometimes it's late and I'm like, oh my God, my daughter is in the car, please come and have a seat, you know? So that asking, we need to engage them. Even when I joined the Civil Aviation Authority, very hectic job. In my family, 2 said, take the job, 2 said, don't take the job. After 3 weeks, the other 2 joined and said, take the job. Now, they own the decision with you and work with you. So even when things are hard, or when you don't seem like to be giving them enough time on the side of family, they were part of the decision making. So there are so many other ways in which we can keep moving with that. The other one is, what is your relationship with your supervisor? If today you are appointed. Supervisors are human beings. That I can tell you. Supervisors are human beings first, with blood flowing in their veins. They have feelings. But what is the relationship that you have with your supervisor? Because that is very critical. You've been appointed into this position with the head of department, with the CEO, whatever position, you have that supervisor. What is your relationship with that supervisor? If that supervisor believes and trusts you, and gaining trust, this is another topic that is very long. What do you need to do to gain trust with your supervisor? Because sometimes they say, my supervisor is so hard, so complicated. I have had experience where those hardest supervisors, I have managed to break the ice with them. Because they are human, what are their families? How old are their children? When they are sick, what happens? There are people who are sick and nobody calls them to say, what is happening? You know? So being able to understand who your supervisor is and being able to connect and build trust are critical for you to be able to succeed in this new job that you have been given. So you need the supervisor, you need the organizational-wide policies that can create avenues for you, especially through the human resource. You need to engage your families to give you that support. You also need, in Africa, we have an advantage of extended families. If that's where you come from, how are you relating with extended families for you? For me, the experience I can give you is that when I got onto all these jobs, sometimes my daughter had her sports day. And I called my sister and I said, could you help me go to the sports day? I'm on my way. And when I come in when she's almost running and I'm shouting, Elaine, Elaine, and she's seeing me. She's like, I've been there all the time. But actually my sister was there. I only came in to grab the moment. So how are you utilizing your extended families? Sometimes we ignore them and we say, no, I want my family, husband, wife, and my 3 children. If you're going to grow into these structures, you realize that you'll need this extended family. You'll need your friends to stand in for you. So I think there are so many that we need. You need all those to be able to stand firm, to be able to deliver. You must be able to be somebody who runs with the diary in your hands. For me, if you look at my diary for 2023, you'll find my daughter's visiting day part of my diary. You'll find the confirmation part of my diary. And when a meeting is being scheduled, I always ask, let me check my diary. If that diary has my daughter, I'll come in and say that day is not possible. Because you have put your family as part and parcel of your diary, it helps you to structure yourself when you come in to deliver or when you take on huge responsibilities. Many times we say, I have a secretary, but have the secretary, but have the diary that is your diary and work with it. And for me, I've done that maybe for 15 years. And I remember one time a newspaper ran the Diary of Olive. If you go into there, you will find it there, you know. So I think that's what I can share with you, Ruchira, and member and the public on some of the things that I think are virtue. We need that support as women to be able to balance those roles, but we have responsibility too as women to be able to position ourselves, do certain things right that can help us actually be strong, make the right decisions, stand out and excel. And we can actually excel, and many women have excelled, but you must be able to have that helps you to do that.
Thank you, Olive. Thank you so much. That was a lot of wisdom, and I'm sure that's much needed wisdom to hear, not just to know, but also to hear someone say. Personally, I believe a very big part of being successful, right? Mm-hmm. Just like we spoke about getting on boards and being there, but success is it's not a milestone. It's how you live day to day, and in that I believe for women it's necessary to ask. Not ask the sky and the moon, but ask on a daily basis how family members can support. I remember when my son was born, and after the maternity break was over, or even during the early days, I was able to notice myself. I was able to notice the patterns in the day, and I was able to tell my husband that I think I can do this the entire day, but there's a point that I begin to come into fatigue. So is it okay for a period of time that the baby is so tiny that you come back home at 6? Because after that, I somehow begin to not able to.
Yeah.
So ask I made of my husband very specific. I gave him a time. And it was also in the morning. My baby used to wake up at 5 in the morning. Yes. I'm like, Lord, I am not available at 5 in the morning. I need at least another hour. So those asks were very helpful.
They are very
about 13 years ago, when my son was born, the government of India did not have a 6 months maternity break. They only had a 3 months maternity break. And I just told my employer, I'm just not coming back. I'll come back when I'm ready. You want to go ahead and hire someone for my position, go ahead and do it. But I'm not coming back before I feel ready. And he's like, when will you be ready? I said, I don't know. Don't ask a new mommy when she's going to be back. I can't answer that. So what I did, I went back after the 8th month. I went back after the 8th month.
You're lucky. You're very lucky to find your job there.
Yeah, so I went back after the 8th month, but this is what I did.
Yes.
I'm not mothering all the time or bathing myself all the time. That's not true, right?
Yeah.
So to keep a sense and some semblance of team continuity and structure, I used to have 2 hours meeting every day, and 2 hours is really doable.
Exactly.
Extremely doable, right? Exactly. So after the 3rd, 4th month, after the official maternity period was over, the 2 hours extended and became 3 hours, right? And there's extended family support, so it's not a big deal. And guess what? I was compensated for the period of time I'm doing work. So at a point where it's an 8-hour working, and you are actually available online for 3 hours, and you don't necessarily have to go to work, but you're doing team meetings, guiding the team, following up, and things like that. It does consume time. I was paid for it.
Absolutely. You can imagine. Yeah. So the asking that you're talking about, somebody who believes in ask.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you'll be given or not, but try to ask. But ask with the solution behind what you want. The other one is your team. If you've been moved into another position, what is the relationship between you and your team? Your team and below are in the middle are your buffer in the time of need. And they will guide you, they will push you to remain at the top in an excellent level.
Oh, I'm so glad you said team. My boss used to he used to sponsor, you won't believe this, my boss used to sponsor pizza retreats and pay for commute and get the cab and get, my team, or at least the top folks in my team, and say, go to her house and meet her. She can't come, you go there.
The team becomes strong.
Yeah, so the team is vital, and the organization play a very big role in doing that. And the reason I'm also sharing this is that solutions do not have to be traditional or conventional.
No.
They're not permanent solutions anyway. They are fixes that we need to tie through periods when life is in a different space, right?
Exactly. And I think COVID has brought another space that you can actually be able to perform online and all other methods. But you must be able to create value. You must be able to remain strong and sound. Your presence must be able to be felt through those different pillars that you're trying to build and put together.
Yes, Olive, and we are well ahead of our time today, but thank you so much as always. It's very nice catching up with you. And yes, we have a lot of folks who have come in, and I'm sure they have questions of you. So we will now move on to the question answer session. And thank you for waiting up so late in the night and doing this for me. Thank you, and doing it with all of us.
Thank you very much, Ruchira. I'm all eager waiting to listen to the questions. Thank you.